Hello and welcome. My name is Samuel Ray, and that is our intro. Things get interesting. So yeah, my name's Samuel Ray. Hey, you know what? I'm the Scuff Doctor at this point. I've accepted that moniker. We fix it live. That's all there is to it. So my name is Samuel Ray, also known as Dr. Sam, and welcome to CounterPick New Perspectives, my podcast with my co-host.
Yo, what's up? I'm here chilling like a villain, bringing the flavor like penicillin. I'm the mad scientist, VTuber, professor, professional yapper. Some call me Sci Prime, some call me Professor Prime.
Yep, and in this podcast we discuss various topics that range in and around the gaming sphere, but general entertainment, where we try to bring to light various perspectives on different topics, because we don't like how echo chambery the internet is. So we decided we would talk about different things, bring our perspectives, and try to also just kind of advocate for a variety of different perspectives, whether that be guest members or just the variety of our own knowledge, because we do like to inform ourselves beyond our own, the tips of our own noses. So that's what we're about here. And in today's episode, the topic that we wanted to discuss was gaming-centric, cooperative games, and competitive games. We're going to discuss the pros and cons of both, because there are definitely pros and cons to be spoken of on both ends of the scale there. And so I was just thinking about it because so recently Sai and I went and we joined some friends in a little gathering, some local friends, and we were playing some Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Sai and we used to compete in Smash Ultimate. Smash 4 more, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, we used to compete much more in Smash 4 than Smash Ultimate, and we were good.
Monthlies.
Yeah, we were good. We could hang, but we
were always like mid-level ish, just like naturally,
I mean, I gave top players in the area a run for their money, that's for sure.
Yeah. So
essentially, oh dang it, I'm gonna fix this, don't worry about it. So essentially what happens though is, like, I haven't played Smash in forever. It's been forever since I last actually tried in that game or even touched it, and I got obliterated
in like 3 years.
Yeah, that is true. And so I got obliterated. Like, it was, I mean, I wasn't awful. I was far from the worst. I'm not to be mean, I wasn't the worst there. I wasn't the lowest performing player there, but the people I went up against were killers compared to how I was performing. And
some of them, I mean, they've been playing it. So.
Yeah, but to be honest, what made me think of this topic was, honestly, like, I recently, especially since becoming a content creator, have started to lean more towards cooperative games and a sort of community driven event, in what games I've been focusing on. And so, but I used to compete a lot in games. We used to be very competitive for a solid, I would say, 10 to 15 years, whether it be amongst our friend groups or, in more formal competitive local scenes.
Well, I'm still a competitive person, but I don't like go to places to compete.
Yeah.
There's, you gotta specify what you mean by competitive, because there's like,
that is true,
competitive events. There's just being a competitive person, which is different from being a competitor. But I believe you're referring to being a competitor.
Yeah, pretty much. And because, like, obviously playing ranked online is competitive by nature. You're trying to prevail enough to increase your ranking, right?
Yeah, but it's the competitor.
It's the PvP equivalent to leaderboards.
Yeah, a competitor denotes more like tournaments, though.
Yeah, but I've kind of like shifted my view. Like every once in a while I get that little hint of wanting to get good at something that's more PvP oriented, right? But for the most part, I've kind of more enjoyed a cooperative experience, and I think Monster Hunter Rise had a huge part in kind of helping me to have that shift in mindset. I had so much fun in Monster Hunter Rise, honestly. It really, that hit at just the right time, and it hit right before I started actually making content consistently. So it became my primary stream game for like the better part of 2 years, and like a year and a half at least. And I had so much fun with it, playing it with people, playing it with streamers that I was finding, and with just in general, the camaraderie element of it was very enjoyable. But that is to say, both have their pluses and minuses, their pros and their cons, right? Positive elements, negative elements, toxicity that can exist on both. And I kind of wanted to just discuss that a little bit, because you, Sai, to this day, the majority of what you play is PvP oriented.
Now, okay, so before we go much further, though, I will say I think you have presented a bit of a false dichotomy here in the first place in the title, because something can be co-op, something can be competitive, but
and it can
also be co-op and competitive. But we could maybe start with ones that are either or.
Well, let's be honest, you have to say something a little more like that to get to get eyes. Not clickbait per se, but what I mean.
Well, it's including that, but there's a secret third option. But
those who actually watch will see that.
So like generally, if you're talking competitive without co-op, then you're talking fighting games, right? That's the main thing.
Yeah, pretty much 1v1
fighting games and adjacent games like arena fighters and platform fighters.
Yeah,
now
anything
there are
1v1.
more non-competitive co-op games, and then when you get to competitive co-op games, you get to team games like MOBAs and shooters.
Yep.
I just want to lay that all out there. But the thing that I thought, first of all, and you've already mentioned Monster Hunter, but the thing that I thought when you brought up this topic was there are still competitive people in a co-op PvE environment. There will be some people who are like that, like you mentioned. You've encountered at least once before people who, or at least seen people who will harangue others over not running the most optimal thing, right? So that's
and that actually
a competitive game, but it is a competitive mindset.
So true. And I'll extrapolate on that, because in the case of like Monster Hunter, the subset of the community or player base is the speedrunning community, the people who focus more on optimizing your hunts using meta builds, so to speak, and just trying to optimize your DPS, your damage output, so that you can finish the hunts as quickly as possible and with as few KOs as possible, right? And player KOs. And so
when you're talking about actual speedrunners, though, that's
that in and of itself,
solo experience, and you're not bothering other people to play the way you are.
There is, but being a co-op game by nature too, I think there is an arm of the speedrunning that is like multiplayer hunts, and then there's the single player hunts.
No, but that's what I'm talking about, like actual speedrunners. Just do their thing themselves.
It is still a competitive thing, because it's built off of the leaderboard mentality, because you're trying to get the fastest time compared to other people.
It's indirectly competitive because you're not interacting with it.
Yeah, it's not head-to-head competitive, but it is still competitive because you're competing with other people for time.
Between running track and doing
boxing,
discus.
I guess so.
Like you are still going directly against.
Yeah,
someone
you're still trying to be faster than everyone else.
track, but
Mhm.
something like discus or whatever, like okay, I guess track runners aren't interacting directly with each other either. So
No,
yeah, it's more like the difference between something like track and field events
and boxing
and
or fencing.
or football, basketball, whatever. Like
Yeah,
the difference of interaction versus non-interaction.
exactly.
Yeah, and that's because like if you're personally trying to optimize things, that's great. If you enjoy that, that's great.
Yeah,
Don't bother other people to play the way you play.
exactly.
And I don't think most like actual speedrunners, who play single player games, speedrunning anything under the sun, really.
Yeah, do your thing, right?
Yeah, like most speedrunners don't bother people, and most speedrunners also will enjoy playing the game how it's, I guess you could say, supposed to be played, because most of them start from that, and they really
Right.
like the game, and they're like, how can I get more enjoyment out of the game?
Mhm.
But yeah, like that's the issue too, I think, is once again, I think this is an aspect that I'm gonna bring out in a lot of conversations. It's the expectation, like when expectations don't match
Yeah,
the environment, right? Then it causes problems.
absolutely.
It's like bringing competitiveness and demand of the other players into a game where you're not even like trying to win against other players. It's just against the environment, the computer enemies, So
Mhm.
the stakes aren't as high.
Yeah, for sure. And that makes perfect sense because, like, yeah, you do want your expectations to match the environment. Like you said, you're not going to go to I don't know. You're not going to go to a library and expect it to be like a club, right? Like,
Yeah.
you gotta have expectations set by the environment and the societal, kind of, societal expectations of the nature of what you're doing, where you are.
I was about to say you don't go to a fast food place and expect your food like hot and fresh immediately.
Yeah, you're not going to
like a dining experience, but some people do ask for, can I get my food fresh?
Yeah, well, the way I put it is you're not going to McDonald's and expecting a sirloin steak.
Yeah, that's
So it's the same kind of thing. You go into
you're not going to McDonald's and expecting food, but
yeah, and so it is toxic in and of the aftershock hit me late. Yeah, like you were saying, you're not going into a cooperative environment. If you go into a cooperative environment and expect everyone else to be, super high performing, trying to get faster times than everyone else or whatever, no, that's toxic. If you want to do that, do it on your own time, or find a group of people with the same expectations, right?
Yeah, now
With the same goals.
I think there is, to an extent, a bit more validity in expecting a certain level from your teammates in a competitive co-op game, like Overwatch back in the day, right? Or
Back when it was good.
Like sometimes sometimes I get irritated at players in Pokemon Unite, but that one's a little different because there are going to be more little Timmies playing it and
it's shorter match time,
something like League of Legends or whatever. But like I remember a particular time in Overwatch, Overwatch 1, back when I was still playing it, before like Hammond was introduced, where in a competitive game, one of my allies just said, I'm giving up, there's no point. I'm like, no, you signed up for a competitive game, play. You're ruining my match.
And not only competitive game, but competitive mode in that game, ranked.
No, yeah, that's what I meant. A competitive mode.
Yeah.
Literally the mode is called competitive.
Yeah.
So like if you're signing up for a ranked match, a competitive match, whatever, like
don't throw
it's
like that.
It's reasonable to expect a certain standard of, okay, you're gonna put in the effort here. Like not expecting like hyper efficiency per se, but like just actually try.
But the toxic part comes in when certain people, they like almost act like they get to be the arbiter of like the performance level that their teammates have, and those are the people who start to flame their teammates and make it a worse experience for everyone.
And this also kind of connects, in my opinion, to something else that you mentioned like the other day when we were playing this. My issue in Monster Hunter Rise was this happened like 1 or 2 times, I think. Not too many times, but like it seemed like every now and then a player would, if my mission was like open join or whatever, one player would come in, die twice incredibly fast, and then leave.
Yeah, to such an extent that it's like, did you do that on purpose?
Yeah, I said this to you. I said there's no way that was on accident. Like if someone is just normally playing and dies a few times, even dies 3 times, like if sometimes that just happens. But like they literally did nothing, died twice, and then immediately left.
Yeah,
that just comes across as more malicious trolling than anything.
and I think that's something that actually is shared between both cooperative and competitive games, is throwing, right? Purposefully just sandbagging or throwing and making the experience worse for your teammates just to troll. Like that can happen in both, right? And like you said, if it was in fact on purpose, that just made the experience of you and the other people actually trying in that hunt worse, right? And then in a PvP game, I mean, come on, the whole point is to try and win, and then you're going to go in and just throw. Like that's just, it's just trolling. It's malicious by nature, and honestly, it's not excusable in any situation, right?
You know what also
Except I would say there is one situation.
You know what also convinces me that it was on purpose is the fact that it was 2 and not 3, because then like 3 would just get it done with quicker, but 2 makes it so that even if the person doing the mission completes it, they're getting as little rewards from it as possible.
Yeah, that is true. That is a very specific amount of times. And unfortunately, in everything, there is going to be people like that, and those are definitely extreme cases. I think I'll be honest, and this might be a little bit more of a controversial take. I think there's only one situation in which making someone else's experience worse, and that's when they're being a toxic, jerk, to put it lightly, on purpose. Like especially in the voice chat, it's like, yo, you're over here being like a horrible person, like outright, like just morally bad. Like at that point, you're just going to want to block them. You may not be motivated to actually try and help them win.
I think plenty of people like some good old fashioned, revenge when you're not actually like
causing them any actual harm.
Petty revenge.
It's like, it's a video game. Petty. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of anything. So if someone is out here, being extremely toxic and just morally reprehensible towards you, you know what? Take their rank points for that, because they kind of earned it. But maybe it depends though, because then there's other people on the team, right, that you're also affecting. So it's still a gray zone. But like, that's the only situation I can think of where it might be even remotely justifiable to throw. Generally speaking, if the point of the game you're signing up to play is to try and win, and you have teammates, right, whether it's winning against another player or winning against the CPU, player versus environment kind of game, then you kind of have an obligation to try, because that's literally what you signed up for, right?
Yeah.
But like we said, don't take it to extreme and then try so hard and then expect everyone else to meet whatever standards you've set in your brain, to the point where you become toxic. And that's where the negative aspect of the cooperative games kind of come in the most, right?
Yeah, true. Actually, if you think about it, a lot of the most toxic games are cooperative and competitive.
Yeah,
because then you have the people on your team that can get multiple people on the same team, some can get the salt from the others.
Yeah.
In 1v1 games, you don't get that as much, except for like I think you mentioned the occasional ones that actually let you chat with your opponent while playing the game, which is like
there's not too many.
Or
I think Dead or Alive
like
did.
Dragon Ball Xenoverse.
Oh, does that one have really?
Yeah, I've seen it a couple times in like YouTube videos.
Oh, I had no idea that was one that let you do that. Okay.
Yeah, on like PS4 and such.
Interesting. But yeah, no, toxicity comes out in droves on that. Like the majority of the clips you might see on social media of someone being very just, saying some vile stuff is in those games that do that. But then there's some other clips where some hilarity can happen, right? When the two people are actually getting along and vibing and just having fun.
Yeah, but like most 1v1 games don't actually allow like direct communication in the moment between the people, unless you're doing like I guess like a friend match or something, maybe.
Yeah.
But cooperative competitive games kind of necessitate communication. Communication is the is the like communication plus competitive communication plus competition is the catalyst,
pretty much, because competition does bring up the salt. Now I will add one addendum to that, an exception on the
there are still people who will like on consoles will like 1v1 in a game that can't even chat in and then like send a message to your account or whatever, but I don't really got to deal with that on Steam
now. Because we've turned off like messages from people who aren't on our friends list or whatever. Actually, I don't even know if you can direct message anyone you haven't.
I'm not sure.
I think you can, but you have to like in the match you have to go into like, because when you go to someone's username in the player list, you can say see Steam profile, and then you could probably message them if they have that on, of receive messages from anyone.
Right.
But regardless, what was I gonna say? Oh, the exception, right, in non-competitive games, I would say is, like we've already said before, games like Monster Hunter, where you have a subset of people that have just this optimization mindset. Another one in which that happens are MMOs. Raids and dungeons and the high level content, right? It's still PvE. You're not playing against other players, you're playing with other players cooperatively, but there is and honestly in that genre there's a disproportionately large amount of people who focus so much on optimization and
I think I have an answer to that, because in games such as like say World of Warcraft, right?
Final Fantasy 14,
late game, I think generally MMOs, but World of Warcraft is like the
prime
famous example, right? When you get to a certain point in the late game, end game sort of stuff, characters get so powerful that the encounters get too powerful to even be possible for a party unless everyone is firing on all cylinders, right? So then you get to a point where you can't do what you need to do unless you have a certain amount of people in the party who are all like doing their job exactly as they should and using the most optimal setup. And so then it becomes a case where
the expectation
literally can't. The expectation is everyone needs to be the most optimal as possible, otherwise you can't do the thing.
That is true.
It's a higher level of, and plus if everybody there is up to that level, then everybody expects everybody else there to be up to the level of skill, because
and that's a fair point. So the problem then becomes when
the same mindset as well.
So the problem then becomes when those types of people,
because if you get a Leroy Jenkins, it's like why and how are you here?
So but the problem then becomes when the people with that mindset bring that mindset into content that doesn't require everyone to be on point. And the problem is that happens a lot in MMOs from what I've seen online.
Like I said, expectation.
Yeah, bring in high expectations where it's not warranted, right?
I think that's just my word now.
Yeah, because and unfortunately it happens a lot where like you have dungeon or raid content in an MMO where it's coordinated content, right? It requires coordination. In the ones where people who are lower level can actually take part, right? And it's like if they're in it, then that inherently means it's not something you don't have to treat it like your legendary raids, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people, a huge subset of people in that genre, I mean, I say huge, it's still the minority of the player base, if in the grand scheme of things, but they're so vocal that they become a widely known phenomenon, right?
I mean, we've said this before. I mean, also, 80-20 rule is just a general thing. Like in this case, 20% of the people are going to make 80% of the noise.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I think we've said this before. I'm not sure if we've said this on the podcast, but it's like people who get deep into a thing, forget how it is to be
casual
at the beginning
or a beginner. Yeah, true that.
At the beginning in whatever way, whether it's like level of knowledge or a level of not effort, deep into the rabbit hole, just playing for fun, whatever it is.
Level of knowledge, level of expertise, level of effort.
I forget where you came from, and the longer
true.
You've been a gamer, that the easier it is to forget that, because that baseline knowledge stays with you, right? So like if you get to that high level of like World of Warcraft, and then you start playing, I don't know, MapleStory for some reason, like it's a completely different type of MMO, but you're still going to have the
RPG aspects knowledge. Your knowledge of the RPG aspects will carry over, and then you'll be able to adapt that to the game you're in now.
And you're never really a beginner again, but then that means that over time you forget how it feels to be a beginner.
That actually reminds me of a tweet I saw where someone was because the announcement recently that happened of the 3 Kingdom Hearts games coming to, the best versions of them coming to Steam finally.
I'm not aware, but all right.
They were announced. They're finally no longer exclusive to Epic Game Store.
I might finally play Kingdom Hearts. I don't know.
And it's the enhanced versions, so of the first 2, and then 3 with the DLC.
Through 358 over 2 days and Earth by Sleep.
The handheld ones.
I like a decade ago at least got stuck at the beginning of both 1 and 2.
Oh, that was more than a decade ago. That was about 15 years ago, I think.
And I never got back to them.
So maybe that's something you can do. But what I was gonna say was so with that announcement, people started talking about Kingdom Hearts again, right? And I saw someone post, and they said that the first time they played Kingdom Hearts, they had never played an RPG before at that point, so they had no idea that you could change your equipment, your keyblades particularly, and beat the whole game with the Kingdom Key.
Sure,
because they didn't know they could change their keyblade, because they were not familiar with the menuing and item, weapon swapping. And so it's just one of those things where, since they had never played it before, they had no idea, right? And we forget how we think that that's like, whoa, okay, because in our minds we had already played enough games that were like, you can change your equipment. So as soon as we got that notification, you got this keyblade, we're like, oh, okay, let me go through the menus and find where I can equip that, right? That was the first thing that pops into our brains when we get a new weapon. So it's just like,
just call it a challenge run.
What?
Just call it a challenge run.
Basically. And so, like we forget sometimes. I think we were talking about it when we watched a video a while ago, how someone who has never played video games they struggle to grasp things that are very basic to us, like camera controls with the second stick.
Or like
doing that while moving.
Or if you play like Mega Man, jumping and shooting at the same time.
Or holding a charge and jumping at the same time, or even in Mario, running and jumping at the same time. So it's like those are so basic to us because we played games for so long. But like,
Well, actually, I'd go further in Mario. I think people who are completely new to video games don't even realize that holding B makes you run.
That's true.
They might like press B and then nothing happens, and they're like, "All right, whatever."
yeah,
And
most
then they
people
just
think of
continue on walking.
buttons as things to be pressed and released, not pressed and held.
Yeah,
Right. But then that's a common input in video games is to press and hold to do something, to jump higher or to run faster or to charge up an attack. And for us, that's second nature. That's something we test out when we're first starting the game and we're testing things. We're like, okay, what does each button do when pressed and released? What does each button do when pressed and held? Right. It's just part of the process in our brains because we have that gaming literacy. And maybe this is another topic for a future of, gaming literacy and like the things you learn through experiencing games over time. So I'm gonna put that down on my notepad actually.
so like unintuitive aspects of video games.
Yeah, like what truly is intuitive in game design, because things we think of as intuitive is kind of from the mindset of an advanced player, right? Because we think about it in terms of things like fighting games, which are take that unintuitiveness to a whole nother level.
Yeah, I mean we've talked about that before.
Yeah, and so it's just like and yeah, like people who've never played them, they struggle with motion inputs.
Yeah,
Anyone who's played fighting games for more than a day, so to speak,
we're off track.
Yeah, but either way, it's those expectations. Don't put expectations upon people when it's not warranted, basically. In order to avoid the toxicity,
as opposed to the like the effects on other people, right? Like what are the effects on yourself, that we want to talk about, right?
That's a good point. Yeah,
it's like the first thing obviously that would be brought up is like in 1v1 competitive games, depending on your personality type, right, who you are, like some people will get much more affected by like either losses or getting like trolled or clowned in a fighting game or whatever, stuff like that. Like it reminds me, and I've mentioned this to you in conversation, but like Markiplier has said in various interviews and stuff, with his issues with anger, because like he's a nice guy generally, but like rage games and competitive games get his blood boiling and he actively avoids it.
Right.
People might have seen a case where I believe it was the game Pogo Stuck, where he got so angry that he threw his chair across the room.
Right. So he knows his tolerance level is just not there.
Yeah, and plenty of people have stories about, I threw my controller, I broke my controller,
Heck, there's clips from like the FGC, right?
TV with my controller.
Yeah. There's clips from the fighting community of like people like, they lost in this important match, slams the expensive arcade stick down. Like,
I mean, I've seen clips of like controller spikes in Smash Brothers.
Punching a wall.
Man shakes his opponent's hand calmly, gets up, walks like barely off camera, spikes controller, shatters it. Some people have the capacity for that. Some people don't, and in some way I envy them.
I would say I'm someone who doesn't have the capacity to lash out in that way in frustration. Like the competitive game that's gotten me the most frustrated was Tekken 7. Because I actually was trying. I actually cared, right? And I was trying to get better at the game while playing ranked. And then at the same time struggling more in online ranked than at the local tournaments, right? Where I even got 7th place at one of the tournaments, or 6th, something like that. At a monthly.
Me, I've never like thrown a controller at a wall.
Yeah.
But there have been a few occasions where I've just like thrown my controller onto my bed.
Or tossed your whole freaking Switch in handheld mode.
Yeah.
You're playing like a card game or whatever, you just toss your Switch onto your bed.
Yeah. But so and while you're
not punching walls though. You're not punching walls, thankfully.
yeah, while I'm a stubborn person and I don't want to just simply avoid games that are competitive because I have the capacity to get
Tilted.
salty and frustrated, because I my natural response is like, I don't want to be beaten by the game.
Yeah, you want to overcome it.
Yeah, I don't want to give up just because it's hard, But there may be cases where it's genuinely the right idea for someone to just leave those kinds of games alone.
Well, and in your case, in those situations, it's not just the game you're trying to overcome, it's the other person you're trying to overcome.
Yeah,
and sometimes you're just outclassed by the other player, no matter who you are, right?
See, here's the thing, though. I feel like while people with natural patience would be able to deal with that much better, I also think those kinds of people aren't going to be drawn to competitive games in the first place.
And that's kind of where I'm finding myself.
That desire to win.
Yeah, and that's where I'm kind of finding myself over the last few years, as I started to, as I gradually distanced from the fighting game genre, as their, common designed traits started to kind of diverge from what I want in fighting games, what I, got attached to fighting games for back in the day. And so as I started to drift away from that genre, I started to find enjoyment in more cooperative endeavors and team-based games and cooperative player versus environment games like Monster Hunter.
Grand Blue's pretty good though. Like you just haven't bought it yet.
Yeah, I haven't bought it yet. I was waiting for a discount, and right now it's at its all-time low of just like $10 off. So it's 40. I'm not sure if I want to buy it for 40.
I doubt it's ever going to have a deep discount.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, I may just I'll see when that sale ends, and I may just suck it up and buy it. That way I have access to at least the full base roster. Play the characters I actually like consistently instead of waiting for them to be available in the free rotation. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like I've started to, and the times that I do play something competitive, it's usually when I'm playing with someone I actually know. Like playing Smash with the guys, the local guys, playing Pokemon Unite on stream with viewers and with you, right? Teaming up with y'all. When I'm playing fighting games, it's like playing Grand Blue over on Arixi's channel when I can. I haven't been able to in quite a while though, just because of timing and personal obligations and stuff. But the most of the time that I've been enjoying things that are a little bit more competitive in nature is when I'm playing with someone I actually know, playing with friends, right? And I do feel like, and I guess we can go into the pros of these things, and this is a shared pro of both, is when you're playing something cooperative or competitive or both socially with people you actually know and can interact with and talk with, it can be a lot of fun, right? There is a positive camaraderie that exists even in 1v1 competitive games like fighting games. The FGC does have a positive camaraderie amongst those in the community when you're all on the same page, right? Same channel. There is a lot of community effort type stuff that goes into that. I mean, that's the whole reason why the FGC has existed as long as it has, playing such a niche genre, right? It's that camaraderie, that positive social element. And then obviously in team-based and cooperative PvE games, that's just inherent to the genre, right? That's inherent to the design. The whole point is to work together. And so it's supposed to, when nobody's being toxic, right? And taking their expectations to the extreme and like foisting those upon others unwillingly, right? When everyone's on the same page and clicking, it's a great time. Because of that natural human tendency to want that camaraderie.
Yeah, and I appreciate bringing some of the positive. Like I actually had the thought to mention positives as well as negatives. Just starting with the negatives because I mean, as humans are, those are easier to spot.
Yeah. Well, and the topic is pros and cons. We're supposed to talk about pros too. Yeah. And so there is a real positivity that can happen in that, even in competition. If you're in competition with someone that you have respect between, a mutual respect between, a rivalry, right? It can push you to push each other to higher heights, right? You can kind of like, if you have this person you want to surpass in a positive, friendly rivalry kind of way, you're pushing each other to get better, right? To improve yourselves. And that can have a positive effect even on your mentality, where it helps you with what's I'm looking for, like persistence, right? To gain better resilience and persistence, resilience to loss, and seeing, the persistence to improve and see that improvement through. And even if it's like more of a bitter rivalry, that still can, depending on your personality type, it can be a powerful motivator to someone to be more persistent and to not give up and to push themselves towards self-improvement. And that is a trait that can help in more than just games, right?
Only certain types of people run on spite, though.
Yeah. Only certain type of people can do that without it consuming them. But for those people, that can be a powerful motivator, and it can ultimately have positive effects on them, not only in games, but in life. They can learn through that competition in games how to be more persistent and have a mind towards self-improvement, motivation in other things too. Those who are quick to give up when met with challenge are probably going to do that in other things in life too. Or at least there's a tendency that they might. But then for others, they might just give up in the game because it's just a game, but they're completely resilient in other things, right? Like their work or school. So it's not always a extremes thing, right? What applies in one doesn't always apply to the other, but there is still a tendency to it, right? Because that's how humans are. Like, our personality traits do tend to carry over into more than just one aspect of our life.
Yeah.
So, there are positive things to come both from cooperation and competition. And I definitely, you just have to keep it from getting toxic. Because like you and me, right? We and our friend group, we would kind of get competitive with our friend group a little bit, to the point where we would host like Smash tournaments with them. And we would also do like some pseudo round robin type stuff or King of the Hill type stuff in other games like Virtua Fighter and Tekken.
Yeah.
And those are some fun times though, because none of us were getting so into it that we were getting hated, right? So it was only the positive aspects of the competition. But then there were times where during our tournament arc, so to speak, where, I'll admit, I would get a little salty, like in Smash. And then you would get a little salty in Tekken, right? And I totally get you on Tekken, because Tekken has a lot of jank that can be just unsatisfying. I sidestepped this thing and got clipped. That's one area where I definitely would say Virtua Fighter is just objectively better, because if you sidestep a steppable move, it will always work. That consistency helps to reduce the frustration.
This may be a little bit
of a side tangent.
Off. Yeah, side tangent, but the thing is, I think, people generally, this is what, causes salt, either when someone doesn't think they deserved the result, or that can either be because of just ego or entitlement, or it can be because they either don't understand how it worked,
how or why,
or why, and
that's the Tekken problem.
So that'll happen more for a noob who doesn't know how the game works, right?
Yep.
But depending on how intuitive the game is, that can also be plenty possible for someone who knows how fighting games work.
Yeah.
It's just that, this fighting game more than others or whatever, stuff just happens sometimes.
Well, yeah, Tekken, that's one of the biggest downsides and widely known downsides of Tekken is too many situations can be explained by, well, it depends. And that lack of consistency. That lack of consistency in outcomes creates a certain barrier of frustration for a lot of people. And other games of similar type, like Virtua Fighter, were designed so tightly that they actually reduce that random variance, right? Or those aspects of variance, and were able to be more consistent in interactions without being any less deep. And that's getting into like game design stuff, like how tightly or how loosely you should design a game, as Maximilian Dude put it, regarding fighting games. And maybe that's also a topic for another day, because that's a completely different tangent. But Yeah,
Okay.
it's just where were
Not
we?
for
Where
me.
how'd we get here again?
I don't know.
Oh,
Anyway.
it was the frustration aspect.
Oh, yeah.
Because
But
we were, yeah.
another positive thing, though, I would say, is there is, I think, a slightly different kind of satisfaction
Mm,
when, as opposed to like a 1v1 game when you win, and the triumph is like
I did
a
that.
team-based game,
Mhm.
whether it's against other players or against the AI, but it's tough enough that like you need to plan, right?
Right.
And your group has a plan, and the plan goes off, like
Perfectly.
that A team factor. I love it when a
Yeah.
plan comes together.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
You don't get that as much in 1v1 games.
True. So I guess to structure that thought is pros for both is the pros of success. They take different forms. For 1v1, it's and competitive games anyway, it's in 1v1 it's I did that, but in competitive games either way it's like we won, we beat these people, we beat you. Kind of a good feeling, like when you're playing sports, right? But
Yeah.
But the downside to that obviously is for every winner there has to be a loser. And so
and then when you have teammates,
Mhm.
then you're gonna have more of a
well, the loss stings less.
Be able to voice. Well, I guess. Okay, I find it interesting that we went in different directions on that, because you said the loss stings less, but I was going toward it's more possible to foist the blame of a loss onto your teammates.
Well, yeah, so the loss stings less. The cause that leads to that result is it can vary. It can either be blaming the teammates so you feel less responsibility upon yourself, but it can also be just sharing the defeat. For most people, is a psychological like cushion for the loss. It's when you know that the loss wasn't solely on you, right? There are some people who do have a tendency to feel like I let the team down, and that can be crushing, right? That can just be soul crushing, of that feeling of I let the team down, especially the overachiever type of people, right? Personality types. But
yeah, I don't really get that. I mean, no, I get it as in I understand it. I don't get it as in I don't feel that necessarily. I'll be like,
yeah, well, I think that's probably because
I
it's a
didn't play
game.
as well as I could have, but I don't get like bothered by I don't get that, oh, I let everybody down sense.
Yeah, I mean, you can understand though, because you have had that feeling of you let someone down. It wasn't in a game, but you've had that situation at some point where you feel like you let down someone you cared about, and like what that feels like.
If you have any level of empathy, yeah, you've felt that feeling before.
Yeah, so you understand what that's like. You just don't attribute that to games very often.
Yeah, but like, as opposed to something like, I guess I would call that, in some small way, that would be, the emotion would be guilt, right?
I guess so, yeah. I didn't perform well enough for the team, or pretty much.
It's not a huge thing, but it is guilt.
Well, yeah.
That doesn't happen in video games for me, but what does happen is anger.
Well, and that's the thing too, though. Guilt, guilt's internal, right? It's inflicted upon the self. Shame is external. It's inflicted upon others. And unfortunately, there are people who, and I guess this is another negative aspect, try to shame their teammates by blaming them, right?
Yeah.
In order to soften the blow on their own ego.
But some people just,
and you can't do that in 1v1.
Shame in video games. I don't, but anger is on the table.
Yeah. And like we said, in 1v1 games, you don't have anyone else to blame, so you do have to internalize the loss more.
Well, you don't have an ally to blame.
Yeah.
But then,
you can blame the opponent's cheapness or the game.
They can find something to blame, and it can be the opponent, it can be the game. Oh, the game, my opponent is cheating. The game is cheating. Yeah, like
True. Yeah, so it is.
Human beings have the natural, the superpower to be as rationally irrational as possible.
Right.
You know?
Rationalize. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not the same as being rational.
Yeah.
Ironically enough.
Rationalizing their irrationality, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there is no way for the game to cheat. And unless they're like hacking the game somehow, there is no way for the opponent to cheat. And you don't really even get hacks in fighting games. Like, you'll see that maybe in shooters, if you know, you can manage.
It can happen in fighting games, but yeah, it doesn't happen nearly with as near frequency or rampancy. Yeah,
like the closest thing would be messing
input
with
reader
the
hacks.
connection.
Well, there's also input reader hacks where the hack does the optimal thing based on what the opponent's doing, but those are harder to make and harder to use.
But anyway, the point is, like, whenever you hear like he's cheating or the game is cheating, it's usually from someone who is just not skilled enough. Like,
pretty much, yeah. It's usually a mad cause bad.
Therefore cheats.
Yeah, definitely mad cause bad type of scenario.
Yeah.
And okay, so then let's compare with cooperative, like player versus environment type of games, right? And I do have a lot of I would say I have more experience with this. When you're working together with others and things don't work out, like, obviously there are still those people who want to blame their allies, right? Especially, and more so in certain genres like MMOs and such.
Yeah,
because their expectations were too high for what they were doing, or, you know, someone just didn't perform to the level that the expectations are naturally at. You never know, because people are, you know, right? Humans are imperfect. Someone's going to mess up sometimes. And that's okay. You need to be okay with that happening sometimes, because you can't expect perfection from anyone, since you cannot reasonably expect perfection from yourself. Some people still do, but it's not realistic. Right? Right? We're just gonna say it that way. It's period. It's just not realistic. But in cooperative player versus environment type games, you still can get that satisfaction of, I love it when a plan comes together, or the teamwork, we just hit that synergy, right? We were in sync and everything worked out perfectly. Or that cool moment happened, right, in tandem with an ally. Like, that kind of stuff can happen a lot in player versus environment co-op games. And when you lose, I do feel like there's a lot less of that sting of defeat when you lose against other players, just inherently, because it's like, you know, we lost to the game, we didn't lose to other people. I think that's just inherently less stinging.
That actually leads into what I was going to say. It's like that goes both ways.
Oof.
Too.
So you're saying like less of a sense of satisfaction?
Yeah, because it, you know, winning against a real opponent is going to give more satisfaction than winning against a fake opponent.
See, I think that is more a matter of perception, though, because some games, the challenge can be designed just right, or it can be so challenging that you still get an equivalent amount of satisfaction from overcoming it. That's why do you think the Dark Souls type games are so popular among the people who enjoy them? It's because they're so challenging that when you overcome that challenge, you still get that euphoric, you know, victory. Yes, I did it. You know, kind of feeling that you can get from beating a powerful opponent.
Yeah, but it's still a different kind of opponent, because regardless of how challenging it is, you're facing an opponent that doesn't learn. You know, you're not fighting Skynet. You're not a neural net processor, a learning computer.
Well, I think I think though it depends on the nature of the challenge, because if you're defeating a PvE opponent, so to speak, that is designed to be more powerful than you, you know, in its gameplay design, it can be a similar satisfaction to beating an opponent who is more skilled than you.
Yeah, but
either way, it's like
playing Dark Souls is like, you know, it's a different kind of challenge, because like playing a fighting game is more, or even a MOBA is more analogous to a sport, right? Sporting chance. Both players need to be on an equal field. You know, like there aren't any sports that are what's the word? Where it's not the same on both sides.
Asynchronous.
No, asynchronous is not right. That's
Imbalanced? No, that's not the word.
uh
I have no idea what you're talking about. Asymmetrical?
asymmetrical. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There aren't any sports that are asymmetrical, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like, yeah, because in any game where like one team has possession of the objective item, right? Like the ball, like in football or football, or well, I remembered that we actually do have like viewers / listeners in other countries, so
Yeah.
American football or football or
Well, you
basketball.
know what, Fritz? It's not even our fault that we called soccer, because that came from y'all.
Right, yeah, you said that.
Look it up. Look up the history.
But yeah, so either way, when one team has possession, the other team gets a chance at possession,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's because you scored and then the possession is given to the other team,
Yeah.
or because you had an interception, or you got to steal the ball or whatever object from the other team.
Yeah, it's
There's
not
always
like the same because one team
Yeah.
has possession of the ball, but
everyone gets a turn
both teams get turns with the ball.
at some point or another.
So it's
Yeah,
like Dark Souls. It's
very asymmetrical.
It's an asymmetrical challenge.
Yeah,
right? It's more of a David and Goliath thing.
Yeah, that's true.
So, or climbing a mountain. So it's the kind of satisfaction you get from climbing a mountain.
Now the thing is,
Perseverance against a difficult to surmount obstacle. The enemies in games like that aren't a sporting opponent, they're obstacles.
see, that's
Learn and
interesting.
overcome.
That's an interesting way to put it, because I've also seen people refer to a more skilled opponent in a game, in something like fighting games, in a similar way, actually.
I mean, yeah, it can get to that point.
Yeah.
The rules still give you the same, like if
Yeah,
your
you're
opponent
standing
just
on the
has
same
more
ground.
knowledge, then
Mhm.
they just have more knowledge, because like fighting
Yeah.
games, all it is knowledge, like to like knowledge and preparation, and that's
Mhm.
the same things that go into a sport, right? And one
Yeah.
athlete being better than the other, knowledge
That's
and
true.
preparation.
So I
Now,
guess
Just substitute the muscle memory of fighting games for actual muscle.
I guess the way to put it is,
Well, and muscle
Oops.
memory as well.
we got a little whoosh there. So I guess the way to put it is, the type of satisfaction can be similar depending on your personality type and your view of it, between player versus player and player versus environment. But the inherent nature of the challenge is different.
Yeah, and I've seen people say that like the Dark Souls of this and that meme, like it's kind of overblown, because in reality, what is Dark Souls? It's a more complicated, more blown up version of something like Mega Man. You're doing the same thing. The bosses have patterns, you learn them to beat them.
Right.
And on the way there, you sometimes get ambushed by a bunch of little dudes and some things that you
That's true.
have no idea that would be there, but you got to learn it to get through the stage.
Interestingly
Get to the boss
enough,
that you then have to learn to get through.
I've seen someone refer to Mega Man Zero as Dark Souls before Dark Souls.
Yeah, it's the
Because
same.
remember, those were hard. Yeah.
And
Nope, that
Dark
makes
Souls
sense.
players like it because of that aspect and also the vibe. The
The
aesthetic.
harshness, the dark fantasy. Yeah, that's true. The oppressiveness of the world that you're traversing. Yeah.
Yeah, it all adds to the
David and First Goliath feel
of being an underdog who triumphs over in a bleak world.
Although you do get that underdog feeling of triumphing against a more skilled, competitor in a competitive game. So, like I said, it's a similar type of. Yeah. There's no world immersion. There are still similar storylines that can emerge. Yeah. It's just that the ones in competition are based in our world and are more emergent, because you can't really plan it out without treading into the realm of wrestling. but yeah, you can't until you get into, but you can't plan it out until you get into the, without going to the realm of show wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Which is fake.
Nah, you bit your lips to say that word. But yeah, no, it's, I mean, obviously when people call it fake, they just mean that it's not a sport. Obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, plenty of people who've made actual videos about wrestling have said many times before,
Yeah.
but yeah,
it's not a competitive sport.
fake, technically, because all of the stunts they're doing are real,
Yeah.
but it's entertainment. It's not a sport.
Yeah. But back to the main point. Yeah, okay, so we can definitely agree to say that you can get a similar type of satisfaction from cooperative and competitive games. Like the challenges in both, just the nature of them are different, and different people can get different levels of satisfaction from each. Like those people who love games like Dark Souls, and a lot of them don't play fighting games, and so they would get more satisfaction from something like Dark Souls than from fighting game.
I would even say that like the kind of satisfaction you get from a game like Dark Souls also overlaps into the kind of satisfaction that a speedrunner would get, right? Because it's a solitary pursuit based on honing your individual skills and memorization.
True.
It's just a different way to get to it.
Yeah, fair point.
Plenty of players aren't going to enjoy the memorizing sometimes frame perfect like inputs and exploits and stuff,
right?
It's a different road to the same result.
Yeah, like I'm personally not a fan of speed runs that use glitches. I prefer glitchless.
They're
fun to watch
sometimes.
But I prefer, but as a player I prefer interacting with the game mechanics as much as possible rather than finding ways to interact with them as little as possible, right?
Yeah, but seeing how people can break things is cool though.
It is interesting to see how they break them.
It's the kind of thing you'll never see intentionally in a game, right? So speedruns do offer something very unique in that way.
That is true. That is very true. And then there are some games that are designed around that. Like when I heard about Neon White, I think like Ghost Runner is in a similar vein, where the optimization is the point, right? And every time you fail, you reset that portion of the level you're in immediately with no loading screen, and then you get right back into it, kind of like reloading a save state in a speedrun practice, right? So it's a similar vein of experience, and it's interesting. Something that I think we should try again sometime, just an aside, we need to try to get back into 30XX, because that has those elements of optimizing your runs through the levels, but in a cooperative sense.
It's also like semi-roguelike.
Yeah, it's roguelite, I would say. Yeah, actually, I saw a video differentiating roguelike and roguelite, and roguelike.
I don't know what the difference would be. I've seen the word roguelike.
So I saw Giga pointed out actually in a clip, and basically roguelike are games that are much more closely related to the original Rogue, where after each, when each run ends, it ends because you either succeeded, you won the run, or because you died and you got permadeath, and nothing carries over between runs. That's roguelike. Roguelite lightens that permadeath elements and lets you have some sort of currency or unlocks that do carry over between runs and gradually increase your power.
Well, then that just means that most games like that are roguelite nowadays, not roguelike.
Yeah, roguelites are more popular because they're less harsh when you fail, because you don't get a full reset. You have some form of extrinsic progression to keep you playing. A lot of people need that to keep playing. Roguelikes are just, you lost, you lose everything, start from square one every single time you restart a run.
They also tend to be designed so that you kind of need to go through multiple lost runs to get, build up some things before you have enough things to actually get through a round.
That's true, to build your baseline power.
From what I know of Hades and also Dead Cells, One Step from Eden.
Like in Dead Cells, right, you gain skills that you need for traversal in later runs.
Well, I mean,
like the Ivy Climb one.
You gain those Oh yeah, the ivy climb and stuff like that. You
Yeah.
also get but from certain levels, from winning certain like levels of run, you get things like being able to launch off the like flaming head, whatever, like tethered to your body to like roll up walls and stuff to get certain things. But yeah, in your runs, even before like winning a run, you can get stuff like the ivy and the teleport and whatnot.
And that is kind of a Metroidvania aspect.
Various weapons and equipment and such, so that you can find them in later runs.
Yeah, that's true. And those may be pivotal in actually clearing a run.
Yeah, as well as just permanent upgrades, like you can now you now hold like 3 of your charge of health recovery,
or you start with a higher base level of HP.
Anyway, we're off track again.
But and that's how we do.
Left field.
Yep, but that's how we do. But yeah, so it's just, where were we getting at? Because we got there from 30XX being a cooperative PvE type of experience with a similar vein to the optimization of the platforming levels and stuff.
Yeah,
because we've never completed a run of that yet. We've completed runs in 20XX, but not 30.
We played so many so much 20XX.
Yeah, 30XX is harder. But yeah, so that's something to do in the future, I guess, on or off stream. But yeah, so here's the thing. So I wanted to close this out then, I guess, with more of an opinionated type of portion where we can talk about what we prefer now or what we preferred in the past. Because for you, I know you grew up playing with me. Since I'm the older brother, you grew up playing games with me. And so most of your experiences with cooperative and competitive actually was with me. Right, we started cooperative, right, with like Sonic the Hedgehog games, playing those cooperatively.
Well, okay, with like the
I played with Dad and you played with me.
But when we got to the GameCube, we had multiple versus games.
Mario parties, racing games like Mario Kart and XG3.
We didn't own a Mario Kart for the longest time.
No, we didn't.
But like,
not until the Wii.
I guess Mario Party counts and whatnot. I would say the first one that I remember is actually Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Because we played the battle mode, although like in the like treasure hunting battle, we mostly just messed around. But with the speed, the race battle and the shooting battle with the mechs.
Yeah, true.
Like we would just straight up go against each other like that. Or we would actually just ignore the emerald shards in the treasure to just fight each other. But we just, like, would keep respawning.
Oh yeah, the spawn camping. Oh, that was so busted. But like also we so here's the thing. We did play more cooperative games than you think, I do believe, because you remember.
No.
NBA Street.
I wasn't saying we didn't play cooperative games, but I'm saying GameCube is when we started playing games against each other. True.
Soul Calibur 2.
I don't think we like owned any versus games on the Genesis, really. I don't remember ever playing it.
So most of the versus games we had on the Genesis also had the ability to play cooperative, like NBA Jam and its sequel, NBA Hang Time, where you could play against each other but also together.
I don't actually remember ever playing NBA Jam on the Genesis. I think that was you and Dad.
Yeah, we played that a lot. Yeah, it was more me and Dad.
I never played it on.
But yeah, you're right. Most of what we played on Genesis was either single player when we'd take turns, or one would watch, or they were cooperative, like the X-Men 2 platformer, or Sonic games, or
a platform beat 'em up.
Yeah. Man, that would be a good throwback game to try and play sometime, like a video or something.
With all its metallic fart music.
Oh yeah,
glory.
True. But yeah, like you're right. GameCube was where most of our PvP stuff started, because then we would play like racing games against each other, like XG3, which was really fun.
Yeah. F-Zero GX.
let's see, Soul Calibur 2
Soul Calibur 2,
with
yeah.
Link in it. Yeah, we did play a lot of versus games actually. Sonic Adventure 2 battles, 2-player battle mode, and the Chow, right? The Chow karate and Chow races against each other.
Yeah, occasionally. Yeah, I think when we played the Chow Garden, it was usually more just one of us playing. We
True.
Use our Chow against each other sometimes, but we had to do a whole thing where we put the Chow over to the other,
memory card.
Yeah.
Well, no, you could race or karate your Chow across with 2 different memory cards. That was back. Yeah, that was back when you could have memory cards in slot 1 and 2 and use things from both for multiplayer games.
I hope that Sparking Zero actually have solid
local split screen. Yeah, at least 2-player local split screen. Yeah, like in the old days of Budokai Tenkaichi, which that was on the PS2. We played a crap ton of that. Yeah, so yeah, we did play a lot of versus games.
I didn't play as much of that as you did either.
True.
And yeah, you were always way better at the mashing and the stick spinning. So
right. But and then yeah, I mean, we did play some co-op games. So like NBA Jam, we would team up, and those games, NBA Jam 1 and 2. And I guess some of the racing games had team race modes too that we would occasionally do, especially if there was more than 2 of us, right? Oh, NFL Blitz. Yeah. That was both competitive and cooperative with especially when it was us and 2 of our friends that we would be mixing up the teams of 2.
Actually, I think often it was just 3 of us.
That's true.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And when that happened, I don't remember if you could have 3 on one team. I think it was 2 per team.
It was like two on one team and 1 on the other. Yeah. That was when the moment happened. You know, you and your best friend and then me on the other team. Yeah, because it's from.
No, his brother was playing too. No, his brother was playing then too.
Was that?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually the other week, went to a barcade. Tried to play NFL Blitz, like the original arcade one. I'm not a sports guy. I don't know plays, so like picking a play was always just like lines, circles, okay. And I tried to I didn't get much done.
That's true, back in the day, because you were younger, so it's like I would usually be the play caller if we were teaming up.
I'm talking about I didn't get much done trying to play NFL Blitz in that arcade.
I see. Now, yeah. So nowadays, the majority of what you enjoy playing has been mostly competitive based. Like you get more satisfaction from competitive games than you do from cooperative games.
Yeah, I mean, I have been playing a bit more one-player games since last time we talked and something like this came up. I mean, I just recently have been playing Sonic Superstars.
Right.
I'm at the final boss.
Right.
Started playing Idle Showdown's Virtual Frontier, and that's been pretty fun. I actually I've been recently streaming before on Saturdays. We record on a Saturday at like 1 or whatnot, before like I've been streaming before you were streaming today. I just wasn't feeling it. And also past 3 streams have been Dragon Ball Fusion World, but I recently went to a new set, and I don't know, but I was actually thinking I would try playing Pizza Possum on stream.
Oh yeah, Pizza Possum, that looks fun.
Yeah, I mean, you can play it 1 player or 2 player, so I was thinking I would just try in that. But yeah, I've been playing a little, playing single player games little bit by little bit recently.
Yeah, but then for the sakes of this discussion, cooperative versus competitive, you lean competitive.
I do. Yes.
Yeah.
I am a stubborn person who likes being good at things. So, I just gravitate toward competitive.
And the only times you really play cooperative, for the most part, is when you're playing with someone playing with friends.
Yeah, because like,
Because playing cooperative, you find more frustration from playing cooperatively with randoms than I do, it seems. Although, to be fair, I get it. I don't like to play cooperative games with randoms that much either. So I get the frustrations that can arise from playing something cooperative, at least cooperative, team-based competitive games, that is. So that's the melding of cooperative competitive. Like if it's PvE, I'll play with randoms just fine, and I don't get frustrated at all.
well, I mean, nowadays, really the only times I'm playing cooperative competitive with
Like Pokemon Unite.
Is Pokemon Unite. I don't really get irritated
Yeah.
that much unless like specific things like stealing my jungle when I'm the jungler.
Yeah.
I will not ever not be irritated by this because I'm playing Dragapult. I'm a daggone little toothpick of a dragon, and I need all of the middle experience so I can at least evolve to the second form so I can be useful to y'all. You stealing one of those Pokemon in the middle prevents you from having an actionable ally.
Right.
It is bad for you to steal my food, but you take my milkshake and you drink it up. I don't understand why.
We had to get at least one Psy rant in.
you know what's gonna.
Yeah, but I get the frustrations sometimes. Like sometimes, yeah. I remember playing Overwatch 1 with random teammates and how frustrating that could be at times. I remember
that before. Yeah.
I remember like the frustration elements in Monster Hunter didn't kick in very much because my mindset is was to become a team healing tank with my sword and shield loadout and my great sword. That way they have a harder time dying and I could still get hits in.
I will say the one of the major differences, and you may have touched on this earlier, but with cooperative games, whether it's competitive or not, you'll get much more funny moments in cooperative
absolutely
games. More stuff happens, and so then stuff happens, might as well mention this because we were talking about this like last week or something, one of the times that we were playing Overwatch back in the day.
Oh yeah,
I played a lot of Reinhardt.
Yeah.
He has like a charge move where he can latch on
shoulder charge
opponent, charge them into a wall, right? And the character Diva in her mech, her ultimate, she ejects from the mech and can send it into explode. And so we were on the second. It was a game mode where it's like
we were defending a point
control. So the defender has to defend the first point. If they can't, they defend the second point, and if they can't do that, then they lose. We were on the second point, and the enemy Diva had launched her mech onto the point to explode. So I saw it land in front of me, did Reinhardt's charge out the front like corridor, and just yelled, "Goodbye, my friends."
Yeah. Oh, that was hilarious. We were all cracking up while we were trying to continue defending the point. We're just laughing and shooting. It was funny.
Yeah, stuff like that happens. You don't get as many like funny moments like that in single player games, whether it's competitive or not, just because there's more controlled elements. When more things are happening because of more players playing, then there's going to be more jank.
Yeah, and like all those times that I streamed Monster Hunter Rise, there was funny things that happened. Like remember when the Valstrax dive bombed out of nowhere?
Yeah.
And like there's just a lot of funny stuff can happen.
Just seeing someone fly across the screen.
True. Yeah.
Someone just running away.
Yeah.
Chasing.
True, like you panicking, right? There was those clips where it's like you panicking in the distance, being chased by like Diablos or something. Yeah. So yeah, cooperative does lend itself more. Yeah. It does lend itself more to those funny random moments than competitive does, since competitive you're so focused on winning, right? Funny stuff can still happen, but a lot of the time I feel like you're so locked in that you don't even notice it, right?
Yeah.
And so Yeah, definitely. Tend to people who play competitive games tend to want to go for hype moments rather than funny moments, right?
Yeah.
For the most part. So there are some people who play like unranked matches in competitive games and go for funny stuff.
Well, I mean, there's some cases where, like, in fighting games, like, things can be funny just because of jank. But, you know, for like content creators, it's usually like the content creator that has to be funny or latch onto those moments and make it
highlight those moments.
People like I mean, we've been shouting out multiple people, like shouts to Dado Doya, you know, just laughing all the time, just saying stuff.
Oh yeah, and like even when him and he's playing with Cyrax and Rhyme Style, he'll do the funny thing rather than the optimal thing, right? Like there are many times where Dado will do the funny thing. Yeah, he has an eye for the content. He does the funny thing for the content. Yeah. Instead of doing the optimal thing for the success. Yeah. And so but again, that's a cooperative setting. The three of them are doing their raids or whatever, right? In Xenoverse. So it's again a cooperative setting that facilitates the funny moments more than a competitive environment.
Yeah.
Even in his recent upload, right? Playing with Rhyme Style doing that Akuma raid boss in the Battle Hub in Street Fighter 6. They're going that's a PvE cooperative thing, where they're taking turns trying to beat this really amped up Akuma. And so, you know, it's a boss version Akuma, basically, like a Shin Akuma.
Right. I saw on Twitter, you can actually activate Shin Akuma mode in versus.
By doing a taunt that gives you access to.
Well, you have to do the taunt and then press down taunt at the end of it after he's after he does his dialogue, and then he starts eating a rice ball.
I see.
Like 2 meters of energy, whatever it is, 2 bars a meter, and then after he gets up, he'll have like the 3 extra moves.
I think it's a Steam button, but yeah. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I saw that. I did see that it gives you access to 2 new supers too. The teleport slam and the pillar slam.
Because he gets the aerial 2 projectile.
Oh, the double projectile, right.
And then he gets the it's either a 1 or 2 bar super where he jumps into the air and then comes down.
Yeah.
And then he gets the classic
punch the ground pillar of energy.
Pillar, which is probably a 2 or 3 bar super.
Right. Yeah. It's an interesting thing. Yeah. So like Akuma Dittos at the beginning, do the taunt, do the thing to get the install, and now you're both amped up. Yeah. That would be a heck of a mirror match.
Yeah, like people were saying that in the comments. Like imagine like a finals and 2 Akuma players are playing and they gentlemen to Shin Akuma. But tangent.
But yeah. Okay, so real quick, just go with what your heart says. Competitive or casual? Competitive or co-op?
Competitive.
Yeah, we knew that was the answer for you.
Yeah.
That's just where you lean. Yeah.
You know, I'm a mad scientist.
Especially when
I'm a villain. I like to win.
Yeah, and that's for when solo gaming. For me, I tend to lean more towards co-op even when playing by myself between the two. Like I'll be playing Warframe and I'll open up, do the open matchmaking, so I can be playing the missions with other players who are also playing that mission, even if I'm not talking to them in voice chat, and stuff like that, so, or Monster Hunter, right? I'll more often do the join request on missions when playing solo so that other players can be in the hunts.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I think after those times that I had the rats come in and cart twice and leave, I started doing open join less.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. But when playing multiplayer, then when playing with someone you actually know, what do you lean towards? Cooperative or competitive?
I mean, I think you know the answer already, but I think I lean more towards cooperative. I mean, may also just be because like most of the people I know don't really play like
competitive games,
1v1 games anymore, if games at all. But I'm not the most inclined person to be I guess personable with just like random people on Discord or whatever. It's like, yeah, I'm not, I'm not friends or anything. Like I talk with people in like, the text, like general or whatever, because like, sometimes I want to talk about the game or whatever. But like I'm not the type of person that will be like, asking the Discord like, hey, who wants to do some games, and then like hop into voice chat with him or whatever.
True. And neither am I, honestly. And then I'm even worse than you on Discord. I'm a serial lurker.
Introversion.
Yeah, like in Discords, I am not a very talkative person, even in just text general chat. So, and the times I have tried to join a VC of somebody, like say another streamer that I know, if there's more than just a few people in the room, I'm very quiet. That's just my nature, though. The more people there are, the less talkative I am. I'm much more at home, and I guess my personality comes out more the less people that are there. One person, 2, 3, maybe 4, but once you start getting towards that, it just feels like a lot of noise. But that's an aside.
Something a bit more on topic here. I also just find a lot of people in Discords of those kind of like competitive games to just like, I don't vibe with them. They are abrasive. Actually, the thing that irritates me the most, I remembered now. I remember the thing that I was going to, condescension. Because if I'm like talking about a daggone like card game, if I have an opinion, okay, like, yeah, there's a possibility that the thing that I said was wrong, but don't like start trying to clown me just because I said something. Like, don't respond all condescending. Like, my God, it's a card game. Grow up. Oh my, just like I said one thing about this card. It was and they're just like, how does it like laughing emojis or whatever, like reacting to my messages with the laugh emoji. Like, I would love to have a conversation. I can have conversations with people I disagree with. Just don't be a condescending jerk. It's, like I don't
Yeah, no, that's fair.
That's
and
the thing. Like, people on the internet who don't know how to talk to people or like have respect for people. It's, y'all need to go outside, touch grass, speak to a person. I don't do it often, but like, I still remember how to be. Did your parents never say, if you don't got something nice to say, don't say it at all?
Now that is a phrase that I think isn't always valid, because sometimes being critical is better than being toxic positive, right? Like,
yeah, I know.
Or patronizing.
I realized once I was saying it, but still, like, don't.
But yeah,
be condescending, pain in the neck.
And unfortunately, people like that do exist in cooperative leaning stuff too.
Everybody thinks they're always right. Everybody thinks, oh, I'm the smartest card player in all of the world. All you insignificant worms should get beneath me. I am the true champion.
Okay, Frieza.
I was talking about Dragon Ball Fusion World. So
it's okay, that fits. But yeah, like, because I mean, that type of mindset can sometimes exist in cooperative games too. Like the people in MMOs, right? I've been playing this longer, so I know more than you, and I am, I can talk down to you because I'm.
And see, the thing is, like, we all get salty sometimes. We all want to, complain about a thing sometimes, or just say like, man, I hate this character or this card or whatever. Like, that was what started. I like. Dragon Ball Fusion World, set 1 at least, Broly was a problem. And I had a match against Broly, and just snowballed and whatnot. And I just said, like, man, I hate Broly. Like, everybody agrees Broly was a problem. And, someone said, like, and they sounded like they were starting to be condescending at the beginning, but I don't know. They're just like, well, you're really not going to like set 2 then, because, everybody knows that. Super Saiyan God Goku is the new problem, but like, it wasn't like I didn't know that. But it's just, I went off a little steam with that. But then I went into actual conversation about a card because I'm like, I don't know if it's a hot take or a lukewarm take, but like I think that a certain card, right? If you play Fusion World, you'll understand you'll know what I'm talking about. 5 cost Goku, the instant transmission Goku, people call it Selku. It's a card that puts a card from the top of your deck back into your energy whenever you put one of your energy into the drop or the discard. I think that like if that card only worked for Gohan and didn't work for Broly, it would have been much more easy to manage Broly, because then you can't make his like special awakened ability not have a drawback, But so I went from saying one thing about the thing I was irritated at, right, to all right, opinion, maybe this should be like this and it would make this character easier, right? That's not complaining, that's having a discussion,
right?
But somebody always will try to say that I whine and cry, like just because I have like, don't throw stones in a glass house. You complain about things too. Everybody complains sometimes. Everybody gets salty sometimes.
And I think
don't like crap on people just because they get frustrated sometimes or salty.
Well,
Salt
I
is
think
going to happen if it's a competitive game.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I think you just touched on a unique con of competitive games that really doesn't exist much in cooperative games, right? Because in cooperative games, if someone is so in competitive games, if someone has a complaint and they're seen as like, oh well, you use this high tier character, so you don't have any, you don't have the right to complain about something from a character that's weaker than them, or what have you. In competitive games, since it's me versus you kind of mentality, and just the way the game is designed.
Like Grand Blue Rising as well.
So essentially having a grievance about something is like, especially if it's not a popular grievance, right, then it's met with more backlash or people trying to flame you for it and like being a jerk towards you for it.
I just don't like playing against Jita. Like I'm not deluded into thinking that she's OP. She just irritates me, and mainly one of the things that irritates me is her corner carry from her, just like normal combos.
Right.
If I mention that,
people be like, you play Sig for you.
And I'm like, I'm not saying that she's overpowered. She just irritates me. It's a personal preference. Okay? Everybody in fighting games, everybody has that like non-high tier character that just
that's that's the crux of it. I think in competitive games, people have less tolerance for opinions, it seems. Whereas in something that's cooperative, people seem to be more inclined to agree with opinions, or at the very least hear out opinions, because the thing is, the nature of it is to help each other, right? And so even if someone is like using a very powerful weapon in Monster Hunter, for example, if you have a complaint about a mechanic of that weapon or something, or a monster that you're fighting, the inherent mindset of people is from a mindset of, I get you, or I could see that, because they're all going against the same threat, right? The same obstacle, the same objective. And so people are less likely to refute opinions,
Right, because those players are never going to be the obstacle that you're fighting against.
Exactly. So they don't feel like your opinion is invalidating their whatever, their loadout, their character, their tactic, because you're not going against each other. So that's unless
you're really deciding to be a jerk and complain about the people who like like we talked about before, who aren't playing optimally or whatever. The only thing I can think of like that's been a bit more like accepted in Monster Hunter is like in Rise, people are like, okay, people who play the longsword, because it's like disproportionately
powerful,
I think was said, but also its sweeping attacks are really easy to
flinch your allies.
flinch allies.
Be a nuisance to you, and unless you give up a gem slot, a deco slot for flinch free.
Yeah, and I believe the like colloquial experiences also are that, you know, noobs or people who are not like good at the game will more often play longsword because funny katana. I'm weeb mode. I want to play katana. Yeah, so,
right. And so they encountered a lot of
like
people being a nuisance.
Leroy Jenkins and bulldozing through their allies and not letting them actually play, and they get to the point where it's like, okay, yeah, no.
But again,
longsword.
But again, that's a shared grievance by a lot of people, and so it's that sense of togetherness in the opinion. You don't see much of longsword players saying longsword's too weak, or, you know, like, you don't see them trying to counter with, well, you know, you're in my way. Yeah, I feel like there's less of the toxicity of that, of having an opinion or a complaint in PvE, even in cases like that, right? Just because of the nature of the game. Cooperative, just since it's geared towards working together, like, you know, unless cases like that, right, where they're flinching you, they're not damaging you, they're just flinching you. But then it's like,
not gonna get cases like where, you know, someone in Monster Hunter says like, oh, this monster is so annoying to fight, or this monster is too strong, or whatever. Like,
you don't get as much good.
Someone is like really a scrub quotes kind of person, like, you're not going to get as much. But you know,
but you use this or get good.
Because in a fighting game, all of the you know, adversaries that you're talking about are also other people. Then
some are going to feel personally attacked,
downplaying or exaggerating, this, that.
So that is, I think that is an inherent con for competitive that is not really there nearly as much in cooperative, that you kind of touched on, and a grievance of yours that causes you to be less likely to socially interact with people in like discords for competitive games. That probably won't occur nearly as much in cooperative based games. So I mean, that's the very good point. Your rant kind of led to a new point that neither of us really thought of before now.
I had forgotten because you mentioned like a couple days ago, and I said I was gonna have things to say, and I forgot what my rant was.
Well, I think it's better that it came back spontaneously, because then you have that fire. Fair point though. Fair point. Because if you have a complaint about something in a PvP game or a competitive game, what you're complaining about is something that someone somewhere has used or benefited from or likes about their character.
And that's happened the most for me in fighting games.
Like in
occasionally a card game.
Like in Monster Hunter Rise, for example, it was kind of a meme that the gun lance was such a bad weapon. And if someone complained about gun lance being bad, they didn't receive a bunch of people trying to jump down their throat about it, because guess what? If gun lance was better, anyone who uses gun lance would be able to benefit them more too. They only stand to benefit from it, you know? Whereas if someone complains about your character, and you feel like if enough people complain about your character in a competitive game, your character is going to get nerfed, and now you're going to have a harder time winning, well, their complaints are now a threat to you, right?
Or on the other end, there's, you know, like if somebody is talking about like a character that other people hate or whatever, it's like they're not as good as you think. You know, then obviously people are going to be like, oh, downplaying. Oh, is the downplaying starting? Is this character downplaying, that character downplaying?
So in competitive games, put simply, but competitive games, the competition aspect of it goes beyond just the game itself, but it also goes into things like opinions on balance and whatnot.
There is also the aspect that, like, historically there have been cases where enough complaining about a character in a fighting game leads to them getting nerfed,
or in anything competitive, actually, because like I think Call of Duty had the noob tube, right? Or was that Counter-Strike? I can't remember. I think it was a Call of Duty game where it was
might have arguments on whether it's you know, valid or not, or it leads to too much nerfing,
right? So and in anything of a competitive nature, you're going to worry about too many complaints leading to unwarranted nerfs and
like,
buffs.
Sometimes the complaints are valid,
But sometimes for
Even
developers, I
validate
imagine it's
and
hard to
lead the-
parse through, and delineate which ones are valid and which ones aren't.
know when to listen.
Yeah, and I think the wisest devs are the ones that they listen a bit, but then they compare what they're hearing to their internal data, right?
Yeah.
Their data based on the people actually playing the game as opposed to the people going on social media and complaining, right? Use the actual gameplay data, that they have access to, because that will give an idea of the majority of the player base as actual experience.
I've seen people on Discord complain about zoners in Grand Blue versus Rising.
And we know it's a game where zoners are particularly weak.
There are no good zoners.
Yeah, Eustace is the closest to a viable zoner in the game.
Yeah,
competitively.
He can also actually fight close up, but
yeah. Yeah, and the thing that makes him a better
zoner is one who can box.
Exactly. So yeah, and I feel like with a lot of complaints, like for example, like I said the other day about how internal data shows that across all modes of play in Smash Bros. Ultimate, the cast is extremely balanced, 49 to 51% win rate across the board.
But there are some valid complaints against certain characters in
specific formats.
In competitive, to my knowledge.
In specific formats like 1v1, because then if you take those same characters and aspects into competitive doubles, that may not be a weakness anymore. Characters who are slower are more viable in doubles sometimes because they have a partner who can kind of shore up their weaknesses or cover their back.
I mean, there are some cases that go outside of those general aspects. Like actually, Min is way better in 1v1 than 2v2, obviously.
Yeah, because she can't get blindsided while stationary while the arms are out there.
I was going to say because in 2v2 it would be a lot harder to not hit your ally with the big punches.
Oh, that too, yeah. But that's the thing though.
And also there's Steve.
Yeah.
Just Steve.
Yeah, I imagine Steve is way better in 1v1s when he can run play keep away and gather resources than in 2v2s or free-for-alls, right?
Well, but I was just talking about him as a legitimate cause for complaint.
In 1v1, yes. But I think in something like doubles, he's probably less viable because it's easier for him to get interrupted when trying to do his stuff.
Well, 1v1 is always going to be more prevalent than doubles anyway, because number one, even if everyone who played 1v1 played doubles, you would have half as many, parties entering, right? Because you would need 2 per party, but also
but that's why I said
it's just easier to play singles than doubles.
They clearly balanced around data across all modes rather than just 1v1, and they've created a very balanced game across all modes.
I'm just saying there's still some cases where there is good cause for complaint.
Yeah, and there was
the issue is it's hard to it's hard to parse valuable criticism from the actual yapping.
I can't think of the specific example, but there was another example recently I heard of where people were complaining on social media about something in a competitive game, but then in the internal data actually showed almost the exact opposite to be actually the case for the majority of the player base, and that the people complaining on social media were a vocal minority as opposed to the actual truth of the majority. So so that just leans into what we were saying. You got to know who to listen to, right? And temper it with some actual cold hard facts. But that's besides the point. In competitive games, that's more of an issue than in play versus environment. In play versus environment games, co-op games anyway, you have enough people complaining about something that is undertuned, and then the devs listen and buff it up a bit. It's only going to benefit everyone. The people who use the thing and the people who team up with those who use the thing. So it's Then
there's cases where complaining actually does lead to a character getting unjustly nerfed, or maybe they were justly nerfed but they were run into the ground. And then there's cases, I know you don't watch videos about Pokemon or anything. I don't even play Pokemon anymore, but there's a whole thing with Incineroar. He's just the most used Pokemon in existence.
Interesting.
in the current games,
Right.
like he's
Scarlet
like,
Violet.
yeah, in tournaments, he's at like, I think the last number I saw was like a 67% usage rate.
Wow. Okay.
Which is like
That's insane.
twice the rate of the next Pokemon, which is Urshifu Rapid Strike, the water version.
Jeez.
Which is one of the most overpowered Pokemon in recent times, because he has an effect that can let him attack through protection moves, like King's Shield, which is a move that like the whole of VGC is kind of built around.
Wow.
So, but Incineroar is used like twice as much as him, and the strange thing is, since the start of his usage, because you know how in the Pokemon games, the starters obviously they have the abilities Blaze, Overgrow, and Torrent, but eventually their hidden abilities will get released. Incineroar's was Intimidate,
right?
Yeah, which lowers the attack of the Pokemon on the opposing side by one stage whenever it comes in, and that is what brought Incineroar to the mountaintop. And the thing is, he has a bunch of like support moves that just make him way too good, and way too good to even like nerf or play around, because he has so many options and will just adapt to the meta.
Interesting.
But also, Game Freak has buffed him. Yeah, there was one, or I think maybe two cases where he got buffed, because
weird
switching moves are very prominent, like turn, volt switch, attack and then switch out, because that lets you like get in a new Pokemon dynamically, sometimes without getting hit, as opposed to a manual switch, while getting, or at the very least it gets you some chip damage. And Incineroar used to get U-turn, is a bug type move, which has 70 power, right? Attack and then switch. At a certain point, like between two of the games, from I think Sword and Shield to Scarlet and Violet, Incineroar lost access to U-turn, but he got Parting Shot, which is a move that is a switch move, but instead of a bug type move, which he doesn't even get same type attack boost stab on,
right?
Instead of a damaging move, it instead lowers the target's attack and special attack by one stage.
Jeez.
So he can come in, Intimidate, Parting Shot, go back out to something else, and then you'll probably get him in later
again.
To get twice the
that's crazy.
The attack drops.
Okay.
And some special attack drops as well.
Interesting.
So yeah, that was a long story, but the point is, Game Freak buffed him.
Okay.
And he was already a problem, and then he
gotcha.
And a certain world champ with the world champ difference, Wolf Click, has kind of made complaining about Incineroar his thing on YouTube.
I see.
Yeah.
Which probably makes him a target for people who like Incineroar, and like a paragon for people who hate Incineroar.
Well, the thing is, like, he uses Incineroar still because he's a
competitive player. You got to use what's good.
Player.
Yeah.
But yeah,
gotta do what works.
There's always going to be some haters who think that you're over exaggerating, and I think to an extent he has just made it his thing because it just became a thing.
Yeah, for the meme.
Yeah.
Okay. So
but it's also real.
Gotcha. So I think that we pretty much said all that we can say on this topic.
Definitely that throw the Pokemon in there, since I'm I'm the one in the know of that here.
Gotcha.
Somewhat.
So yeah, so to sum it up, there are pluses and minuses pros and cons. I'm getting tired. Pros and cons of both. Neither is I would say inherently like objectively better or not. It just depends on your personality type. Can you handle the cons of one or the other? And I do think that, generally speaking, more people have the psychological capacity that are like compatible with cooperative compared to competitive. But then there's those people who just don't fall in either camp and only want to play single player stuff. Hey, says Kyle. Good to see you. Good to see you. Unfortunately, you caught us right at the end of the topic, but I will be re-uploading this very soon. And of course, if you got here from the link, you will be able to watch it after I unlist it. So, but I edit it, I truncate it, and then I put it on back up on YouTube and on audio only podcast platforms as well. Usually just a couple days later. So, but yeah. So I think to wrap things up, we can actually plug you now, Sai. So where can everyone find you?
Oh yeah, all right. So you can find me at I believe youtube.com/SaiPrime, SAI, the word prime. I'm trying to do.
So there's no numbers.
No numbers.
Awesome.
We ain't Xbox Live here. I am also on Twitter. I do not post, but you can find me there. Yeah, I've been trying to do more streams. I'm working on cooking up some videos. See how I enjoy that. And yeah, that's about it.
All right. Yeah, I know you've already done 3 Dragon Ball Fusion World, the digital card game version.
3
streams for that. Challenge streams, right? Trying to use some of the weaker characters and color factions.
Well, I started with the weaker ones, but yeah.
Yeah. And then yeah. Okay. Also, Sai's thumbnail game is on point. He's definitely got better thumbnails than me.
It's a different flavor.
Yeah. And then so yeah, you're everywhere as Sai Prime, SAIPRIME. For me, you can find me everywhere as s-factor-sam, s_factor_sam, pretty much everywhere. So I've got that uniformity across all the platforms. Got to have that brand parity, right? And yeah, there goes my phone. I forgot to mute my new phone.
Mute that.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks to everyone who listened. We had some lurkers while we were talking through these topics here. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Some stuff came up.
You, random citizen.
Yeah. So we got some technical difficulties, and I think throughout the stream it's been a little choppy. I need to kind of figure that out. Some stuff came up. I don't know what the heck happened. But yeah, I'll mess around with stuff like I do. And we're gonna keep this up. Last Saturday of next month will be the next podcast episode, and we'll decide on the topic sometime throughout the month. And that's pretty much it. Stay tuned because I stream every weekend, mostly game related streams, and if it's anything that has any kind of multiplayer capabilities, I usually open up the lobby to viewers. So it's just come together as a community and enjoy some good games with good people.
Yeah, and I've also been streaming on weekends too.
Yep.
Again at the channel that I already plugged, YouTube.
Yep. We're both YouTubers.
Yeah.
So I am
technically a YouTuber, yes. Now.
Yeah, we will stream on YouTube. We don't stream on Twitch anymore. I would multi-stream Twitch if it weren't for that darn chat relay rule and that rule against having chat on screen. So I like having chat on screen for later uploads or the VODs, or those who want to watch on a TV or something, right? So
yeah.
But yeah. And that's pretty much it for us for today. It's been a long week for me, so I still need to go take a shower. Actually, didn't have time to do that before the stream. So, and then I'm gonna get to editing tomorrow. I am off Monday. It is a holiday. I don't think you are. It's a bank holiday, and I work at a bank, so I have the day off. I don't know what I'm gonna do on Monday. Maybe I'll do some video related stuff or something like that. So. Or maybe we can, after you're done with work, we can do something maybe. Either way, yeah. So hit us up everywhere. Social media, YouTube comments, what have you. Don't hesitate to tag us or use the hashtag CounterPickPod, one word, to give some suggestions or feedback. Topic suggestions, feedback on the podcast. any of that stuff. I occasionally check the hashtag to see if anyone has posted anything. So, all right, that's it for us. That's it for this episode. I think it's season 2, episode 3. No, season 3. Sorry, episode 3 of CounterPick New Perspectives is in the book. This is episode 3 of this season. Yep.
The thumbnail says 2.
What?
The thumbnail says season 3, episode 2.
Crap, I thought. Oh. Okay, well, I'll fix that for the re-upload.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll fix it for the edited re-upload. So.
Scuff Doctor at it again.
Yep. There's always something, isn't there? Oh, man.
Do the outro.
We don't have an outro. I mean, I have an outro video, but we don't have an outro.
Gotta get out of here.
All right. Have a good one, everyone. And I'm going to probably be over in the Discord too to chat a little bit today. All right. Have a good one. Later.
You took my line. I was going to say later.
Oh, okay, fine. Have a good one.
No, it's done already. Cut it off. Cut it off.
Okay, fine.
Genuinely, my brain went blank after you said later. I was just waiting for my
Okay, well, anyway, outro.
outro.
Yeah, outro.
There we go.